Hello, my name is Sara Boggs, and today I'd like to deliver a speech to you entitled Quilting, a Labor of Love. I hope that you will learn the history of quilting, the various styles and techniques used in quilting, and the basic steps in constructing a quilt. You may say, what is quilting? Quilting is a labor of love. It is very time consuming, and you must take extra care in making your quilt. According to Quilt Chat, quilting is stitching that holds the layers of the sandwich of a quilt together. Although quilting is the technique in stitching to hold the blanket together, quilters tend to use this as a general term, meaning putting the pieces of fabric together. How it originated. Averill Colby states that quilting appears to have originated in Asia sometime before the 1st century CE. The first known quilted object is a quilted linen carpet dating from the time found in a Siberian cave tomb. Getting started on your quilt is a difficult process, but first you must choose your pattern. In quilting, there are many types of patterns. There are patterns that are simple. For example, the Turning 20 uses 3 different sized quilt blocks, to much more intricate designs such as the wedding ring quilt, around the world, and the cathedral window. After choosing your pattern, you must decide on a fabric. You need to decide on a fabric that is best suited for your quilt. Silk, polyester, rayon-like materials are all very slick and hard to use in a quilt, so you need to decide on one that would work for your pattern. Many quilters prefer a cotton-based material without much stretch. They also enjoy using flannel because it makes a quilt warmer or cozier. Material comes in a variety of colors. Choosing material is truly a personal task, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Having the right supplies on hand to make your quilt is essential. You need to have basic supplies such as your fabric, scissors, rotary cutter, cutting mat, rulers, a sewing machine or needles, and thread, to even more supplies such as batting and binding. Next is a major step called making the cut. You need to read the pattern to get your measurements so you are sure to make the right cut in your fabric. You stretch out your fabric and smooth out any wrinkles you may have. Ironing is your friend on this. Quilters tend to have a rule called measure twice and cut once, because you can always measure more times than you can cut. Once you cut, it's the final thing in your fabric. A quilter's tip is to pin post-its to your fabric that you just cut, so it keeps you on track with your pattern. It makes it a whole lot easier. The next step is piecing it all together. It's time to assemble your quilt and what is considered the top of your quilt, because it is what is seen on your bedspread. You have 2 options in assembling your quilt. They are hand piecing or machine piecing. A general rule of piecing is to use a 1/4 inch seam. It gives you a little leeway when quilting your top. Hand piecing is a very time-consuming process. You need needle and thread to get this completed. Machine quilting is much quicker, but you do need a sewing machine. Sewing machines come in a variety of brands, different sizes, and price ranges. You just need to choose the one that is right for you. And on this, ironing is your friend, because it helps your pieces lay flat so they, when constructed, go more evenly together. Your next step is layering your quilt. Just as the sandwich has layers, so does the quilt. Sandwiching is taking your newly pieced top, layering it on top of your batting and backing. I have an example here for you. Here's my top, my batting, and my backing. The batting can be polyester, cotton-based, or a new environmentally friendly example of bamboo. The backing is again a material of your choosing, usually something to coordinate with the top. To begin sandwiching, you stretch the back tight and smooth it out. We tend to use a yardstick to help get out any wrinkles, and then we use duct tape to help tape it down to make it lay flat. Next, we lay down our batting. Finally, we lay down the top. After placing fabric down and sandwiching your material, you need to be able to keep it together. There are different ways to accomplish this. You can use a needle and thread and baste your material. That means quickly sewing all over your quilt to keep all the layers together. Or you can use safety pins, which is much quicker, and piece the 3 layers together. There are various different ways to quilt. You can quilt in a ditch, by design, or meandering. Your main objective by quilting is to keep your layers together. Tying is one of the quickest ways to quilt. Some people do not believe that tying is a form of quilting, but you use a needle and thread that is thicker or yarn, and use an up and down motion through the 3 layers of the quilt to help hold the layers together. When you have both pieces of the thread on top, you tie it together and knot it. This holds the quilt in place. Hand quilting is a labor-intensive process. It takes a while to do, but the outcome is remarkable. I have an example here. It has many different forms of your hand quilting, a lot of meandering and quilting in the ditch. You have a machine quilting, which is a faster process. You can machine quilt on your home machine, or you can also purchase a larger quilting machine that's specifically made for machine quilting. Many quilters even take their quilts to shops that are specific to machine quilting. It saves the quilter time, but can be pretty pricey. And this is an example of a machine quilted quilt. Your last step is sewing on your binding. After quilting your blankets, your edging may not look too appealing. So the way we fix this is by trimming the edging and sewing on the binding. To trim the edge, you square up all sides and cut off the excess with a rotary cutter. The binding can be store-bought, called bias tape, or you can simply make it at home, which here's an example of what it looks like. It's the small red binding. You use a sewing machine to tack down the binding 1/4 of an inch on the top of your quilt, and you have to miter the corners as you go along so the binding lays flat. And again, this is mitering your corners. Then you just hand sew the binding to the back of the quilt. This gives you a clean edge and makes your quilt look nice. Making a quilt is a labor-intense process. There is a lot of hard work in making a quilt. Beyond the thread is love that binds a quilt. There is no greater feeling than curling up under a quilt that you've worked so hard to make. Thank you.